WWE boss Vince McMahon has resigned following sex trafficking allegations from a former employee.
Let me just say that I've made mistakes, obviously, both personally and professionally through my 50-year career. I've owned up to every single one of them and then moved on.
He's a human being too. Everybody looks at him as the boss, which he is. And we just I think we just been through so many things together.
The sex abuse allegations facing Vince McMahon and the WWE, they are filthy, explicit, disturbing enough to bring on major backlash from the wrestling megastars.
The legendary WWE career of The Undertaker, Mark Calaway, started way back in 1990, while the sexual assault allegations against Vince McMahon first came to light in 1992 with the whole Rita Chatterton situation, who claimed that she was sexually assaulted by McMahon in 1986.
I was forced into oral sex with Vince McMahon. When I couldn't complete his desires, he got really angry, started ripping off my jeans, pulled me on top of him, and told me again, if I wanted a $500,000 a year contract, I had to satisfy him.
Since then, a plethora of abuse allegations have seemed to follow Vince McMahon, the latest coming from Janelle Grant, who filed a lawsuit in January of 2024, who alleged that McMahon coerced her into a sexual relationship and, along with WWE executive John Laurinaitis, sexually trafficked her and repeatedly sexually assaulted her during 2020 and 2021.
Vince may have been influenced by John Laurinaitis, now. And this is me, and this is my opinion, but I believe he is as guilty as hell.
I've said before, I don't think he can survive this, and been wrong. But this one, I don't think he can survive this because it's too much on the heels of everything else that's come out.
I wish he'd really just stepped aside. The first time we just heard a little hint of these allegations.
Yeah. Now, assuming that these allegations turn out to be true, which many believe will be the case, the one question that a lot of people have, including myself, is how many of the top tier stars knew about Vince McMahon's behavior throughout the years? Guys like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and in this case, Mark Calaway, who by all accounts had an extremely close relationship with Vince McMahon.
I knew Vince liked him. You can't create that. Even if Mark had tried to really be his friend, it wouldn't have gone because this is all Vince. Vince likes Mark. And not too long ago, I think when he went to Saudi Arabia, Mark went with him. Mm-hmm. And I remember Vince had a cane. He's walking with a cane. And they were going into the pay-per-view fight or whatever they were going into, the MMA fight. So I think Endeavor was there at the same time because Mark knew all this was going on before the rest of us did. I think Mark is a pretty straight up guy. And I think he pledged his allegiance to Vince and he's got Vince to thank for everything. But this is hard to even be accused of doing what Vince has done, but I think Mark just won't say anything about it.
Now, it could very well be that Mark Calaway just doesn't want to be associated and he just doesn't want to address these horrific allegations against Vince McMahon. Because before these recent allegations came to light, he has always spoken very fondly and very openly about his 30-plus year relationship with McMahon.
Early on, it was like, how are you, Mr. McMahon, kind of deal. And, through 30 years, obviously I've been through just about everything with him and, realize he's a human being. And I think a lot of times people forget that he's a human being too. Everybody looks at him as the boss, which he is. I think we just been through so many things together professionally and even personally. It's just become more of a friendship than it has an employee-boss kind of a relationship. Obviously, he's still the boss, but I deal with other people much more now than on a business side of things than I do with Vince. And our phone calls are normally just checking in and, seeing how each of us are doing in our world. And
The Undertaker's wife, former WWE wrestler Michelle McCool, has also stated that regarding his relationship with Vince McMahon, that there's nothing they wouldn't do for each other.
There's nothing that Mark wouldn't do for Vince personally or professionally, and vice versa. So it doesn't matter, what realm of the world you're talking about as far as the relationship goes. It's special. They truly would take a bullet for each other. They are just that close.
As mentioned, Mark Calaway joined the then WWF in October of 1990 under the gimmick name The Undertaker, which was the brainchild of Vince McMahon. And this character would become one of the, if not the most iconic characters in wrestling history.
So one day I'm sitting at home, phone rings. I get up and go answer it because we didn't have cell phones back then, right? So, hello? He goes, is this The Undertaker? I was like, Undertaker. Fuck, Undertaker. That's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, this is Undertaker. Yeah, and it was Vince, and that was how he introduced the character to me. Flew me up to Connecticut the next day, showed me the storyboards, and the original character, is based on an old Western Undertaker.
Mark Calaway's allegiance towards Vince McMahon is actually pretty understandable, considering that Vince took a chance on him when WCW stated, and specifically Ole Anderson stated to Mark Calaway, that no one would ever pay money to watch him wrestle.
I was there about 8 or 9 months, and my contract was coming up, and I go in to renegotiate my contract, and they were like, "Look, you're a great athlete, kid, but no one's ever going to pay money to watch you wrestle."
So not only did Vince McMahon change Mark Calaway's life for the better, they've also been through a ton of stuff together from a business perspective, including the Monday Night Wars with WCW, which saw many of Vince's top stars jump ship to WCW. However, The Undertaker stayed. And The Undertaker has also since been quoted as saying that he cannot imagine a WWE without Vince McMahon.
A WWE without Vince is that's just hard to imagine.
Now the question as it pertains to this particular video is, did Mark Calaway, The Undertaker, know about Vince's dodgy behavior throughout his career? Because logic dictates the amount of time that these guys spend on the road together, traveling from country to country, venue to venue, 200 to 300 plus days a year. Logic dictates that he had to have known something.
everybody knew my relationship with Vince and Bruce and all of those, Pat Patterson, everybody knew my relationship there. But those same guys that I was on the road with, that I was hanging out with and partying with, you know, they knew what happened there was safe and there was never going to be any crossover. Don't let what we're doing at night get in the way of business. I mean, that was a really strong rule with me. I don't care what we do. Because with Vince, regardless of what anybody thinks, deep in his heart, he's one of the boys. He really is. And he has that mentality. Things had to change, obviously. Whatever. Things change when the business, when the company went public. There were a lot of changes that had to happen. Changes for the better.
Now, something that people need to realize as well is that if, because it's all speculation at this point, if Mark Calaway did know about Vince's dodgy behavior throughout the years, it's not as cut and dry as people seem to think that, oh, well, he should have exposed him. Because from his position, there's a lot on the line where if he was to try and expose Vince McMahon and he was unsuccessful, I mean, he couldn't just jump ship because there's no way to jump ship to. The WWE acquired WCW back in the day. I mean, AEW wasn't a thing back then. And the other thing is, and probably the most important thing, the WWE and Vince McMahon owns the Undertaker gimmick. They own his whole persona that he portrays on television, which is arguably the most important thing to Mark Calaway's success.
Yeah, I'm the Undertaker because I knew it wasn't Eggman, and everything had to be better than Eggman.
He wasn't singing the shower guy.
Yeah, he wasn't singing the shower guy, and it wasn't Eggman.
I also ran a poll on my YouTube channel asking the question whether or not people thought that Mark Calaway, The Undertaker, knew about the Vince McMahon allegations all along. And from 322 votes, 75% of the people voted yes. Now, the fan in me hopes that he didn't know about the allegations, and will probably most likely never know in any case, but after watching a bunch of interviews with him and documentaries, particularly The Last Ride, which chronicles the events leading up to his last match, he seems like such a cool, good guy, and you don't want it to be true.
Incredible person, great friend, great father. He's awesome, man. Words aren't enough to describe the person that he is.
Just a serious dude that gives back to the business, and probably one of the best people that could be in this business. And for somebody that has been so successful as him, man, he's a great guy, and it couldn't have happened to a better person, because he's the real deal, man. He's a good person.
Again, we'll most likely never know whether or not Mark Calaway had knowledge of Vince's dodgy behavior throughout the years. And another guy who I personally hope didn't have knowledge regarding this is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And you go like what?
Right.
But in any case, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.